I'm excited about today. Thank you all for joining us. We're talking about the new normal in youth ministry. So we have 5 of our wizards here. We were just joking a minute ago as you guys are all joining us and hopping on board. We're glad that you're here. None of us are experts in youth ministry. None of these guys have a magic ball that predicts the future. But we really do want to have an honest, real, authentic conversation today about what youth ministry might look like beyond coronavirus. So we're excited that you're joining us this morning. My name's Eric Miller, and I'm the new Director of Ministry Operations with CE National. We are still planning to have momentum this summer in some way, shape, or form. So please, thank you for being patient with us. Please keep sticking with us. We're going to be rolling out some announcements and some things coming up here in the month of May about momentum that we're pumped about. So thank you all for being patient with us. We're looking forward to this summer because we really do think that momentum is going to happen. The theme, Hope Has a Name, is going to be just a beautiful backdrop for all of this craziness going on in our culture right now. And so we're excited about that. So all right, today we're talking about the new normal in student ministry. How do we come out of coronavirus in student ministry and into the new normal? What in the world does that even look like? How do we do that? So we've got some friends here with us today representing different avenues and strengths in the area of youth ministry. I'll go ahead and introduce them. And I'm going to start with the person that I've known the longest, Carly Nicodemus. Carly and I went to middle school together. We became good friends in high school, and I would tease her relentlessly about her germaphobness. And now I've learned I had to go back and channel what would Carly do to protect herself from germs. So we've used lots of hand sanitizer. I love it. So Carly, you may know her husband, Dave Nicodemus, from the Mark and Dave show. Dave is more than a funny guy. He is the youth pastor at Grace Polaris Church in Columbus, Ohio. But Carly not only is a supportive wife and a mother of 4, but she also serves alongside of Dave in the youth ministry there. They've been married since 2004. They have 4 kids. So pray for her and Dave as they're home with 4 kids, but they live in Columbus, Ohio. And Carly has a faithful and dedicated heart. She's incredibly hardworking, and it's a joy to serve alongside of her on the CE staff because Carly is also the Momentum Registrar. So when you get those emails from the registrar, it's Carly. So thanks, Carly, for joining us. And we'll stay with the ladies. We'll go ladies first. Angie Dalavali, we have her on the call as well. Angie is the middle school director at Grace Community Church in Frederick, Maryland. Woohoo, that's where I am from. So I actually got to hire Angie and helped work alongside of her when she first came on board. Angie is a very creative and passionate person. She loves what she gets to do, and she is doing awesome things in that ministry. Her and her husband have 3 girls. Her husband's name is Eric, so I like him. He's an awesome guy, and they are a lot of fun. So great family. Then we have Todd Schumaker. Todd is he's originally from Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. So just north of Baltimore. He's an Orioles fan. I don't know why, but he's hung in there with them. So that's awesome. Todd is the pastor of student ministries at Grace Church Bath Campus. So he gets to work alongside of an awesome team there. And he's been on staff for about 10 years now. So Todd's doing a great job there. Him and his wife, Katie, have 2 kids. And even though Akron is his home, he's a Steelers fan too, in addition to being a Baltimore Orioles fan. So I know we have some other Steelers fans on here. I just want to caution everybody right now that whatever the Steelers fans say, you might need to just take what they say with a grain of salt. Just going to put that out there. So I'm glad to have Todd on the call as well. Cody Ray. Cody is our Connection Church pastor. He is at York. And Cody, is it Connection Christian Church? Did I get that right? Connection Christian Church. He's the youth pastor there. Yeah, Cody and his wife have 2 kids. Cody's an awesome dad. He loves the Lord. He's led Operation Barnabas before. But you probably know him most for that amazing head of hair that he has. I just want like a silhouette of that, the curls, the beard, all of it. Just It's awesome. So thank you, Cody, for joining us. And then we have Tyler Kramer. So Tyler is a product of Cedarville University. I had to wear my Grace College shirt today. So Tyler's a product of Cedarville University. He's the youth pastor at Marysville Grace in Ohio, just north of Columbus. Him and his wife, Bree, have a son. And they've taught Power Tracks and Momentum before. They've done a great job with that. Tyler has a very creative and unique ministry mind. So we're excited for all these guys to be on our call today. I'm going to stop talking. We'll let them share. But I want to just give you guys an introduction into who they are and why we've asked them to be on this call today. Again, these guys don't have all the answers. And what they share today, it's really not about how you can replicate that in your ministry, but to generate some ideas. We want to have an authentic and honest conversation. That's part of our goal for this whole conversation, is to help you as a youth leader be successful. And we want to keep offering these digital labs as a way for, we'll tackle some tough topics that hopefully would offer value and meaning to you as a youth leader, to your students and your families as well. All right, let's dive in. Let's talk about this. Our culture and context we're talking about is important here. We're talking about the new normal. We can talk all day long about how crazy coronavirus has been and things that have worked and not worked in our student ministry, but we're now transitioning and we're going to look beyond that. So for the next 30 minutes or so, I would love for us just to talk about what do you think life is going to look like moving forward? Or better question, what are some things that you've learned during the past several weeks, trends, themes that you've seen in your student ministry over the past several weeks that you think might be helpful, keys, insights into the future? We also, before I open it up, have a question and answer box for all of our participants. If you want to ask a question, below there's a Q&A box. Those of you who are joining us live on Zoom, there's about a dozen of us. So click that Q&A box and you can ask some questions for our panel. All right, let's open it up. What's the past several weeks been like? What have you learned looking forward? Who wants to go first?
I can start us off. It's good to be with you guys. Thanks for the opportunity to join into this call and share a little bit about what's going on in ministry. Definitely weird times. We can all agree in that. But I think it's good to say that there is no going back. There's no looking back at where we were as we look ahead and as things start to open back up and possibly get back together here soon. We have to keep our eyes focused forward, right? Because this season has changed, I think, life as we know it. And so as far as ministry, I don't think we can go back and look at what we were doing. We've got to keep moving forward and reinvent and kind of readjust. And so with that in mind, like, this was a season of a hard pivot for us in ministry. I would say we were behind the ball when it comes to like online virtual ministry as a ministry. So I'm like throwing that out there. We were not up to speed, but very quickly we had to be. And so it was a very hard pivot in order to keep our students connected virtually the best way that we could. I think one of the cool parts that we've pulled out of this is that our like small groups, our biblical community groups for our students can still work and be very effective. In fact, we've seen over the past 7+ weeks here, since we've kind of got the opportunity to go online, we have seen our attendance increase in comparison to a year ago. Because as you look at the season that we're in, April into May tends to be very busy for students as school wraps up, sports, are in full swing, and people are gearing up for the summer. So from a year ago, we're seeing an uptick in people dialing into community because I think they see the need of it. And so that's kind of the one thing that I've been very impressed, and I think it's really cool to see the students dialing in.
That's awesome. Yeah. Who else? Things you're learning. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think we were also behind. Like we would post some things on social and all that stuff, but that's not really creating a community as we're starting to realize it's necessary. I believe God is saying, hey, here's this thing called the internet church, start using it. And so, yeah, the whole focus forward, like you said, Todd, that's something that we've been saying too, is there will be some aspects when we get back of that we will go back to of meetings together, hopefully hugging each other and whatever. And, but it's necessary to figure out how do we create a community online that is consistent, that people enjoy, and not necessarily like we had a staff meeting the other day, and I said the world is one zip code now, so we're not into you live here so you're going to congregate with these people. Yeah, that's going to happen some, but as we think bigger and more possible of what we can do, how do we incorporate a group gathering and maybe a screen of somebody who's 3,000 miles away, in our small groups and things like that. So everybody was excited about Zoom at the beginning and had great attendance. And then, like everything, there was a little dip, and now it's starting to come back again. So we're figuring that part out and working to make that consistent for everybody to be part of, and how is that going to look in the future and all that stuff. But it's God saying, hey, use this Wi-Fi tool that I've given you for a while, and now we're forced to, and it's been pretty cool, and it's going to take a lot of work though.
Great. Thanks, Cody.
One of the cool things I feel like we've seen is just the push to go back to basics and develop just godly habits. And it's been really neat to see a lot of our students who have never had a daily habit of being in the Word, just all of a sudden being given the gift of time to be able to do that. And we've been having students share just quick 30-second, 1-minute videos of a habit they developed during this time. And just to hear some of these kids who we know probably were never personally being in the Word every day, spending a little bit of time each day, and what just God is teaching them through that. And just being given the gift of time, I think. I have I have 2 middle schoolers myself, and my one is a giant extrovert, big into FOMO. This was really hard on him at first. He went through a lot of anger, just being separated from his friends. And the other day we were talking, and he was just feeling so lighthearted and just full of joy over this chance that he has to not have all these things that he has to do, but just being able to be together as a family, and the things that we've been able to do, and just being given this gift of time. So I think just going back to some of the basics and not relying so much on our giant gatherings and all the, the fancy fanfare, but just back to just being in the Word and being intentional with relationships.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Tyler, what about you?
Yeah, I think for us, it's been a crazy year for us. We just switched our structure. I was talking to some of the people the other day about this, and we switched our structure to where we have went to a once a month youth group gathering, because we started to sense, and I think a lot of people in youth ministry started to sense a change was coming to youth ministry, but had no clue what. And then this hit. And so over this past year, God blessed us by forcing me, which I wasn't very happy at the time, with kind of switching our structure and things, and really working on empowering our leaders. And so we had a youth ministry that was doing fairly well, but not everyone was getting discipled. And so we went to this process of empowering our leaders and really utilizing our life group structure, and making that our number one thing. And so typically in youth ministry, you see the big night, that youth group night as kind of that catalyst event, that main important thing. But we switched it around and said, hey, that's going to be secondary. We want life groups to be primary. And during this time, I could not be more grateful that we did that, because instead of me trying to reach out to all of our students, now I'm just checking in with my leaders and saying, hey, have you touched base with your 4 or 5 students? Have you, how's everything going? And yeah, I'm still touching base with students here and there, but the burden of everyone is off of me and onto our church. And so it's building a greater community in our church. And it's been awesome, because we have seen kids even being more thoughtful in their responses, digging in more. And I was one student that I was super close with a couple years ago, I asked him, I said, who are you closest with? And he said his life group leader, not me. Which it kind of hurt a little bit because I'm like, oh man, like, but at the same time, it was such an awesome thing to hear because that's what we were going for. And he's like, yeah, I'm talking to him like every single day. And that's, you know, in my mind, I'm like, there's no way I could talk to every single kid every day. But our leaders, when you break it up into the small groups, they can. And so this has been a cool time to see the body of Christ and the church in our local community really come around our students and shepherd our students from a distance and continually stay in touch with them. And so, yeah, we like the social media, all that stuff, we were not up to speed, just like Todd and Cody said, but fostering that community, it's been tough in groups, even in our small groups, but the one-on-one connection, because we've empowered our leaders, has been crucial.
That's awesome. Yeah, Angie, what about you?
Well, I just wanted to say, Tyler, I love what you said, that God blessed you by forcing you to change. Because I feel like at the beginning of this, I felt so frustrated, like with having to adapt to all the changes. And even like thinking ahead, I'm like, oh man, we get to do it all over again, right? Because we're going to be getting back together, but it's not going to look the same. And there's going to be restrictions in place and it's going to be different. And so I've been trying to intentionally shift my perspective as a leader of what is the blessing in this? What is going well? Where is the Holy Spirit at work? And then leaning into that as opposed to trying to force it back to what it was. So like in the beginning of this, we leaned into how can we make meaningful connections? So we tried a bunch of things and some things worked really well and some things it was like, oh, that's not going to work. And so I love that we're being forced to innovate. I love that our students are resilient. Like the things that haven't worked weren't epic failures. Sometimes I think I've been afraid to do something new because I'm so afraid of like the possible ways that it could fall. But that fear has been lifted in that we've just been doing, and we've been seeing God at work in the things that, in the things that have gone well. So I love the opportunity to try new things. And I don't want to look into this new season of getting back together as like trying to force us back to where we were. I want to really look at what God has been doing and do some editing in our ministry.
So as you guys are kind of looking at what the past several weeks or months, maybe feels like years, have been like, what are some of the things that you've started during this time that you want to invest in the future? I heard several of you saying, we weren't up to gear on having an online presence, but now maybe that will continue. Or what's something that you've seen start during this time that you want to keep going and carry forward?
Well, this is kind of a small thing, but one of the cool things we started doing was focusing more on our social media presence and specifically Instagram. So we started doing takeovers with our Insta stories where we asked a trusted student or a graduate from our Youth Men program or one of our youth workers to take over our Instagram for the day and just kind of chronicle their day and what they were doing. And it's been cool to see some of the students share like, okay, here's my time in the Word, here's I'm going to work, here I'm doing this for my family. And the cool thing is it's actually gotten a lot of people from our church involved in watching it. And our church is not always usually ahead of the times when it comes to things like that. And one of our students even created an app, with the phones where you hold it out, you can, a little box over your head over like, which character are you? They made one for our youth men that said, which Grace Polaris pastor are you? And he put all the pastors on there. And so our students are doing that. Well, the cool thing is they shared it to our media page for our church, and a lot of people from our church started doing it. So we were able to share on our youth men page all these people from our church and other pastors, holding up their phone, like, which pastor are you? And it was just a really cool way to kind of, I guess, bring some, a younger perspective to just our church body as a whole. And it was kind of a simple, like, thing, but it created a lot of buzz last week, and it was just really fun and exciting, and it just gave everyone something just kind of fun to be involved with.
That's awesome, Carly. I actually thought you were going to say you wanted your kids to continue the habits of getting in God's Word, but you went a different route. Okay, that's fine. Who else? Anybody else?
It's a safe place to steal content, right? I'm jotting notes down all the time, here. So I'm like, all right, head blocks with pastor on Instagram. Done. All right, that's good. I tell you, we've had actually a lot of fun as a team thinking about creative ways to try to interact with our students. And we've come up with some things that worked really well and some things that were like, we're never, ever doing that again, because that was a complete waste of time. All right. And so one of the things that have been really fun is finding ways to get our students engaged with us. Maybe we go live on Instagram, maybe we go live on YouTube, and bring them in on a Zoom call and streaming that. Similar to what we're doing right now, there are ways, and even free programs out there to be able to do that. And we found the more interaction with students that we have, rather than myself and my team, the more engagement that we have with other students dialing in. And so during the season, we actually made each day of the week kind of a theme. So like on Monday nights, one of my team members will go live and we'll host like an online game on Instagram so that students can dial in and watch, and he'll bring participants in with him. On Tuesday, that's where it's Tuesday Tunes. And so whether it's some worship music put out, some of our students will record themselves playing, and we'll kind of post that on their behalf, just trying to get, like I said, student engagement that way. Wednesday, we've actually gone live with our large group programming, just moved it on to Instagram. And so trying to keep a service with students dialing in, I'll pre-record a devotional, and we'll kind of stream a live service that way, which has been fun. Thursday's been, I think, one of my favorites, where it's Talent Thursday, and students will like sign up for their talent and they'll compete, and we'll have people vote. And we'll kind of like keep the champion, moving forward, and to see how far they can make it. And so that's been a hit, and a lot of involvement that way. Friday's the one that actually flopped for us. We thought, Friday night we'll, try to host a Netflix party or do something with movies. Yeah, that didn't work. They weren't interested in watching a movie with us. And so they're just kind of doing their own thing. So that's the one day that we're still trying to tweak and figure out that way. So it's been fun.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks. Anybody else on that one? What things you want to continue and carry forth? Anything? Angie?
Sorry, I hit stop video instead of mute. I love Zoom Bible studies with my small groups. I have been having so much success getting into the Word with the students in this context. And in our church, our students are all over the county and they're very busy. So I feel like that's going to not change. Once they can start doing their things again, they're going to start doing their things again. But to be able to say like 8:00 on a evening, maybe we can do a Bible study once a week on Zoom. We might be able to get more people on board with that. But it has been such a joy. It almost feels like when you're away at a retreat and you have those deep discussions late at night or whatever, those are the kinds of conversations. They're asking great questions, and just another layer of opportunity to get in the Word. I will for sure be looking for ways to do that once we're still meeting in person.
Nice. Very good. All right. Any of you that you started doing a like live recording of your messages in some way, shape, or form, and you're planning to continue doing that? Anybody? Yeah, a couple of you. I know for some, maybe you were doing that already, but that's definitely a way that we can continue to engage with students where maybe they can watch that outside of those times. Todd, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I think our mindset moving forward is the idea of like 50% in person, 50% online. We can't get off, the internet here. We can't just go back to where we were. And so trying to find ways that even if we do our large group programming, is there a way to record it or stream it so that those who aren't there that night can kind of stay connected and up to speed with where we're going. So we're in the brainstorming process. We're trying to figure out what that looks like. But the idea is we want 50% of our ministry to be to remain online that way. We have a couple different buildings with our campus, and so attenders can choose. Do they want to go to the Gent Road building? Do they want to go to the Montrose building? Well, now we're throwing on the idea of we also have our online piece. And so trying to equip our teams of reaching people virtually.
Yeah. So we got a question here from BJ. Thanks, bro, for putting this in here. A good thought. Let's kind of go the other direction, right? So are there any aspects of your youth ministry or student ministry that you've been wanting to get rid of that maybe now you can use this transition as an opportunity to get rid of? Now, answer carefully, because maybe your staff or people are watching this. But honestly, like, what are some things that maybe you can use this as an opportunity to readjust and refocus as a part of what was in the past? Anybody?
I think for momentum. No, I'm kidding. We're not getting rid of momentum.
You're dead to me.
I see it. No, I think for us though, like there were just certain things in culture, especially with our junior high ministry, where it was kind of like, hey, our junior high, like they're just waiting to get into high school, and it was kind of like this, hey, high school is primary, junior high secondary. When that wasn't necessarily, that wasn't what anybody was putting out. It was just kind of this, underlying thing. But now, because junior high has their own life groups and they're meeting on Zoom and they're doing everything that our high school is, it's allowing them to feel prioritized because they have their own set of leaders that love junior high ministry. They have their own people. And so I think for us, like it's maybe not as much like killing a program or killing something that we're doing, but it's killing a bad stigmatism that came with like, hey, it's this second rate thing. And it's when it's really not. And so I think for us, that's the case. And then even like looking at some of our summer activities, like we're reevaluating, and I expect to know a better answer to that at the end of summer when we reevaluate and say, hey, like maybe this thing that we did kind of spur of the moment worked 10 times better and fostered better relationships and helped students grow more looking back than what we thought was working well. So I expect to know more about that answer once we're on the other side and actually see, oh, well, maybe this actually worked better.
Yeah.
Yeah. To sort of continue that, I think one thing, like I'm sure you all have seen it. There are some that, like some students that they were there every week, multiple times a week probably, and now they're kind of, well, where'd they go? And there's others where they were inconsistent, but now they're part of everything that we're doing. So how do you evaluate that and figure out, okay, are we there just for games and activities or just because my friend is there, which is, it's okay. Or are we going to disciple a little more intentional, a little more, okay, we were all over here. Now let's funnel it down to this 1, 2, and 3 things is who we are, rather than trying to be all these different things. I think is something that I've been able to actually think through. Okay, I like discipleship, I like leadership, I like this, and focus on those 3 things, and then have a team of, they can focus on this, but through the funnel of just these very intentional things, like everything that you hear in leadership is find your niche. And so obviously we're going to share the gospel, we're going to share Jesus, but it's through a lens of these different things. And so I think this time for me specifically has been, okay, what is my lens? What is my funnel? What am I getting back to what I was supposed to be, what I was doing, and rather than being scattered everywhere. So when we get back together, it'll be more intentional of, yeah, we'll have fun, we'll play games, but let's focus on the main thing, and let's get to this, and let's use this tool. Yeah, you're going to have soccer sometime again, but it's pre-recorded, so you can watch this on this time or whatever. So I'm excited about that, and I'm just excited that, yeah, there have been things that, wow, let's narrow it down even further than what it probably was before.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. I think there's definitely things that if we're aware, if we're looking for them, there are things that God might want to be showing us that we can pare down, that maybe before we were doing so much in our student ministry that it was just not effective. And maybe there were things that and maybe we're still in that process of figuring out what those are, which is totally fine. But I think VJ is bringing up a great idea or concept here for us to be wrestling with and thinking through of what were the things that maybe we were doing that weren't as effective. And maybe our answer was, well, we're going to keep doing that because it's what we've always done. And that's usually a red flag too. So Carly, what were you going to say on that?
Well, I was going to say my husband can kind of attest to this more, but just the importance of a leader too, to be constantly feeding yourself and refueling yourself. I think he realized just how much he has been, go all the time and planning and pouring out. But if you're not, refueling yourself, then you are running on empty. And the same just for our youth workers, like taking the time as a staff to just pour into and make sure that our volunteer youth workers are being fed and refueled, and just taking this time to just reach out and really invest and build into them, because they're like the youth ministry frontline workers. And sometimes we can forget and take them for granted.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that even leads into a wonderful plug. Scott Feather and I did a digital lab on self-care. So if you haven't seen that, you can go check that out. It's on our website. We also, Mark Archip and Carly's husband, Dave, talked about how do you deal with temptation when you're in isolation. And so those were amazing digital labs too, you can check out. So, all right, let's keep going. What do you guys feel like this whole COVID-19, how has it adjusted or affected the role of youth ministry, both now and in the future? So what impact has the coronavirus had on student ministry? Yours or in general?
I think it has brought to the surface the importance of community. And the church provides a level of community that a student can't get anywhere else. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the church. I love the pivot that the church as a whole has made. I think back at Easter, and I remember sitting at home and just seeing on social media all of the churches that made the gospel clear, right, and accessible for people. And so I think God is at work big time. I think back, and our students obviously wouldn't even remember this, but 9/11, there was like a consistent decline in Christianity. People, walking away from the church, and tragedy like that occurred. And it's amazing how the church kind of rebounded a little bit. People started to turn to the church for hope. They needed to hold on to something through that season. And I think this is going to be a similar situation, right? And I'm thinking for youth ministry specifically, my prayer is that the students see the importance of being together. I know loneliness, anxiety, depression is skyrocketing. And in a season like this, it doesn't help those causes. And so I know our students are like spiraling, trying to find something to hold on to. And so I want us as a ministry to make the gospel accessible, to make community accessible to them, and in a sense, reaching out a hand and seeing that this is a place for them to be. And so I think there's a lot that's going to come through this. And that's where I think I found peace, and I'm clinging to the hope that's found in Christ, obviously, but he's brought this sense of peace in my mind through the season because he's working. Big stuff is happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. I'm right there with you. Tyler, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think two things that I'm seeing kind of and could see happening is, number one, schedule. I think that's the battle that every youth ministry, everybody that does anything with kids fights. And it hit me. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was asking me because I'm the extrovert, and he was like, man, he's like, I was telling him, I'm just struggling with this. I hate it, all this stuff. And he's like, dude, I love this. And I'm like, what? He's like, I can just relax. And so as I was thinking about that and transferring that to our students even, I think what we're going to see is some students be like, I don't need all of these things in my life. Because I think some students are going to be at the point where they're like, some time by myself just to relax is nice. Some time just to be with my family. Like we've seen families, start doing things together, and that's awesome. It's incredible to watch that. So I think we could see maybe schedules open up because students don't overcommit themselves as much. I mean, I think right when everything opens back up, they will, but then it's like, wait a second, I kind of enjoyed having more time. And then I think the other thing that I'm seeing is the thought behind things for students is increasing. I'll text a student and say, hey, how's he going? And they'll send me, like, instead of just good, they'll send me like a paragraph of, just, hey, here are my thoughts, or, hi, how are you and Jesus doing? And they'll respond just with this overwhelming response of, man, God has been so good during this time, and he's teaching me. And you see that hope that they have because of Jesus. And you see some boldness starting to rise up in them. And so I'm starting to see this generation realizing, man, like all of these things in the world are going to fade, are going to leave. But the thing that's going to last forever is God's word. And you know what? People are actually right when they said, hey, like this gives hope. It gives joy. And so I think, man, for a lot of these kids, they're starting to actually see it in that light because everything has been stripped away from them except for God's word and except for biblical community, as Todd was talking about. And so I'm excited to see, especially when things open back up, some of the boldness that could happen from this because they've just had time to be in the word and learn and to let that be their source and their joy and their light.
Yeah, that's great.
I was going to add, I think we've been seeing a shift too in families realizing that discipleship can and should start in your home for believing families. I was talking to a parent the other day who said, I'm just so used to going to church and sending my kids off to their separate classes that now that we're sitting down as a family to watch the worship service, we're having conversations that we've never had before. I realized, what they knew or what they didn't know and how they've never, as a family, had those conversations, and they've relied on either, Christian school or church, youth group to provide that for their kids. But she's like, I feel really empowered that like I can have these conversations with my kids myself. So I just have a heart too, just going into the future, thinking through how can we better equip our parents to feel like they have a say in their son or daughter's spiritual development too.
That's great perspective because having a 1 and 3-year-old, I cannot wait for children's church to start back up again so that we can listen to an entire sermon uninterrupted. Yeah. Thank you, Carly. That's very good. Angie, what about you guys with just on a middle school level? I know that's primarily your focus. Like, how have you seen the coronavirus affect middle schoolers, both now and as you project into the future?
That's a great question. I would just say watch out, world, because God is building up this generation. And so I get excited getting to have more time investing with these students, the ones that are showing up, getting into the word with them, building them up. We're going through 1 Peter right now and talking about suffering and how God uses suffering and how to persevere through it and how they can be a witness through it. And so I just get excited about what God's doing right now, building up these students in our ministry, and they're going to be the future leader, like they're going to continue to grow in their walk with the Lord, and God's going to continue to use them. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like this is just a really exciting time to be a leader in youth ministry because of the crazy amount of opportunity we have to really put our faith to action, to really connect these kids with the word of God and with the Lord. And man, I'm just seeing like that happening, and it's awesome.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So BJ asked a question, just kind of to go back to what Tyler, you were saying a minute ago about schedules with our students. have you guys seen any effective ways of encouraging students to make their walk with Jesus and connecting with your ministry more of a priority in advance of, some of the things being lifted and opening up? Anybody doing that?
So I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Cody.
I think something that Tyler, you talked about, and it's something that happened with us as well. So I think God told me at the end of 2018 and the beginning of 19 that 2019 is a setup year for the year 2020, and he told me that the year 2020 is the year of creativity. Didn't know what that meant or anything like that, what that was going to come, and then boom, this hits, and it's like, okay, we're all changing and we're all figuring out new things. And so part of what we did in 19 was what you did, Tyler, of kind of flipping, okay, Sunday nights is when we meet, that's our big night and all that. But we want to create a culture of the small group leaders are your leaders. And so we started pouring into our leaders and saying, your students are these 8 to 10 or whatever, and your students and your students and your students. And so they took ownership of their students. And so it's eased my job a bit of same thing, Tyler. And so I think pointing out the priority of the schedule is just saying it and say, pay attention to what you're thinking about right now. Pay attention to what you're feeling right now. I don't feel like I'm pulled in all these directions. Okay, listen to yourself as you say this. And then when things start to open up, we can gently remind them of, hey, remember when you said that you didn't want to be pulled in all these directions, because it will happen again if you allow it to. And then we will be able to push that big boulder of change priorities. And then as you keep pressing and keep repeating yourself, it's just going to get easier and easier, because those people that you're pouring into, those students, those leaders, they're going to be able to do it for you, and then you'll be able to do it with others. And it's the whole discipleship process. And so it's just reminding, okay, pay attention to what you're thinking now, how you're feeling now. And then when things open up and sports come, musical, whatever, okay, remember what you said back then. And let's go back to that point and say, yeah, we're going to do those things. I'm not against sports or whatever. I love them. But is that the priority? Are you being brought back into that anxiety that you were in before, that restlessness that you were in before, that too much going on, and just start to realize, yeah, it's not necessarily you have to be at the church building all the time, but my small group leader was at my game, and that showed me a lot. And so that makes me want to come to church. That makes me want to be with my group. That makes me want to be with these core people, because they were out in this place. And so I think the difference in what COVID has done and what is going to lead to is to make things smaller again. Yeah, we want to have huge momentum style weekly things with thousands of people, but it's going to be the small 8 to 10 groups that are really going to change the relationships, that mindsets and all of that stuff. So it's, yeah, let's have the big stuff every now and then, but let's think smaller, which means probably at a Starbucks or a McDonald's rather than a church building. It might be a soccer field. It doesn't matter, but it's just reminding, think about what you're thinking about right now. And when we open, remember what you said.
Yeah, Cody, that's really good. I just wanted to highlight two things that were coming to my mind as you were saying that, because I think it's the things that we're sensing now in our heart of hearts that the Holy Spirit is impressing on us that we need to address, that those are the things that we got to be writing down and be prepared to speak on in the next month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, to remind our students, hey, remember what God did. Angie, you were just saying, like, remember like what God was saying to you during your Cardly. You were talking earlier about the habits, and remember how you had those spiritual disciplines. Like, it's going to be our job to recall, to help them remember those things, and keep, fanning those flames. Another thing for any youth leaders who are listening to this and you're like, oh my goodness, Cody and Tyler, these guys are doing small groups. I got to throw everything out the window. Hang on. Like, it was, God was saying to them, right? So it's not just like these are great across the board youth ministry ideas. The heart of it is learning how to really listen to where God's leading you, right? So I see everybody nodding their heads. Like, that's imperative, okay, in youth ministry. And so if your prayer life, if your time in the Word, if your communication with other people that will help you learn and sense the leading and the will of the Lord for your ministry, that's where you got to focus, right? I know any of these guys on this panel today would want to press that down deep. Yeah, Carly.
I have a unique role just with connecting with lots of youth pastors with my job with Momentum, and a trend that I've seen in talking with them is just this pressure that they feel they see all these things going on with other youth groups, and they feel the pressure that they need to not necessarily compete, but just keep up with it and do all these, crazy and elaborate things. And so Dave and I were talking the other day, and just what did we want to communicate to youth leaders? And it's just to go back where God has equipped you personally, and to not feel this pressure to be someone that you're not, and just lean into your giftings and how God has equipped you, and let him just work through you in that area, and not feel like you need to be doing more or more elaborate, but just sticking to how God has already gifted you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying that, Carly, because that was a lot of pressure that I faced once the stay-at-home order went into place, right? It's like that pivot brought so much pressure onto me and my team that we felt like we had to keep going the direction we were going. And there was like, it was like a dark week for me, and I really wrestled through that. And so I just really appreciate you saying that, because ultimately, it's not the work we're doing, right? God's going to use anything we're doing to reach young people. And the Lord's going to meet them where they're at. And so I think the focus on our personal, spiritual health, emotional health is so important through all of this, because we're setting a direction, for those who are in our ministries to follow. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
For sure. Listen, lean into your giftings and listen to the Lord. I have been so overwhelmed with, trying to keep up. That's one thing that's definitely an area of temptation. But also, when I think about opening back up, I get so excited to see everybody. I literally spent about 30 minutes one day trying to plan out a week-long summer camp out at our church, because I was like, oh, I just can't wait to be together again. And then I was like, whoa. I just jumped 50 million steps ahead of myself. And so just pausing and taking where God has us right now, and taking it one step at a time in this journey, and not getting too overwhelmed, I have to have it all figured out, or, just really leaning into the Lord, and letting him lead, and leading out of my giftings, and, where my kids, listening to where my students are at. I have student leaders. They've come up with some great ideas through this season, and I'm sure they'll have some great ideas when we kick back off. So I'm excited to hear from them as well. And my adult leaders and volunteers have been killing it too. So leaning into their gifts as well as mine, and letting the Lord work that all out.
Yeah. So we got a few minutes left. Let's one last question, unless somebody else in the participant wants to ask something. I'm curious, as we shift, Angie, like you were just saying, into the new normal of student ministry, what's something that you're excited about, right? What's something that you and your team are working on planning that you might be willing to share with us once the restrictions are lifted? What's something that you're mentally, emotionally, spiritually preparing for in this new season? Nobody wants to go first, Todd?
I feel like that was the hardest question. I feel like that was because like I said, I was planning, in my head, something that I don't even know if I would be able to do. There's a lot of unknowns. And so I don't really know what it's going to look like when we start meeting again. It's going to be new, so that's exciting. And it's going to be surrendered. I feel like this is a season in leadership where I really have to be surrendered to what God is doing in the world and in my life and my students' lives and in my, in our community. And so that's exciting. But exactly what that looks like, I don't know. And I have to get to a place where I'm okay with not knowing and trusting God with it, and taking it one step at a time. I am excited that it's going to be new. I'm excited that it's not going to be the normal. And I'm excited that eventually we'll get to see each other again. So those are the things that we're looking forward to.
Good. Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, I agree with you, Angie. It's very hard for me to see down the road. It's like we're driving in really dense fog right now. It's like, I know we're going somewhere, but I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like in the end. And so we're kind of focusing here in just the next couple of weeks. We're really excited about investing into our graduating seniors. And it was interesting. I heard a conversation with a student, the perspective that they gave me during this COVID-19 season. And it was like, they feel like something was taken away from them, right? So this whole pandemic like robbed them of a season of their life, and I don't know how you guys feel about that, but for me personally, I'm like, I don't get that. I don't get that sense of feeling. I'm like, I've actually enjoyed being home. I think there's a lot of good rhythm that I have found personally with being with my family and the balance of ministry. So I've experienced a lot of good, but hearing that perspective was actually eye-opening for me. And it was really good to hear. And so my team, we're actually spending a lot of time thinking about how we can honor our graduating seniors well. And so putting together a senior night and allowing them to opt in if they choose. Right now, we're thinking it's going to be all virtual. We don't know what the next couple of weeks hold, but we might be able to bring some of the students in live to kind of go live with us on camera. But right now, we're planning on doing this all virtual. And the cool part is, as a gift, what we're doing is we've got a handful of volunteers in our church that are good with cameras. They're photographers. And we've actually asked them to kind of give up their time, and we're scheduling out our graduating seniors and setting up basically a photo shoot at their house and letting the family like get pictures together as a family and have that moment. And we're gifting them, like the digital copies of those photos. And so it's like, however you want to do photos, whoever you want to invite to that, the photographer will be there, and just trying to honor them that night.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tyler?
I think one of the things that I'm kind of thinking for and excited about, and I know I've talked quite a bit about leaders, but is once we get out of this and all of our leaders, kind of like, okay, hey, and just to allow them to look back and say, hey, like, you guys were the main shepherds, and to continue to encourage them and to say, hey, like, look at what you did. Now keep doing that. Because the question I get is, well, I don't know how, or, what am I supposed to do? Or how are we supposed to do it? Continue doing, because it's forced them into it. And sometimes you just have to jump in. Like you can't learn to swim on the shore. Like you have to jump in. And so I think, for a lot of these leaders, they've just jumped in, and I'm excited to be able to say, hey guys, look at what God did through you. Look at how well you discipled. Now continue that on. Don't, just because we're back to what the new normal is, don't just let that, go aside and be like, okay, like now we can let other people like take their role, like, because this is their new role as well. And so I'm excited to see what that does for our leaders, but I'm also excited to see how that empowers them all the more to continue on with it.
Yeah. Carly?
We're planning just to keep building on the small group momentum that we have. Like Todd said, our small groups have grown through this, and kids who normally are involved with sports every evening have been able to jump into our Zoom small groups, and that's been great. And then also just as a family, as a couple, we're really hoping to start hosting more things in our home for smaller groups of students. We've kind of gone away from that as our youth group has grown. We can't really, hold 100 kids in our house, but if we can bring in, smaller groups of kids at a time just to like do life with them as a family, we're looking forward to just kind of going back to some of the organics of youth ministry and just walking alongside them and letting them be part of our lives as a family.
Awesome. A couple of things I want to point out. We did if you're interested in learning more about how to care for your seniors, who, Todd, you were saying they feel like they've lost everything. We did a digital lab on that with the youth ministry Sherpas, Steve Anderson and Matthew McCabe from Download Youth Ministry. You can check that out. We also did a digital lab with Greg Steer, and he was just talking about they're going to be on May 28th doing a national senior send-off, national senior send-off. You can check that out on, I think he said the website was www.nationalseniorsendoff.com. It's not up yet. I even just checked the other day. That website is not up, but it will be soon. So check all that out for senior care. Some great resources that are available. I know we could keep talking about more things that we're excited and things that we're planning, but we're about out of time here. I want to try and keep these to an hour. So thank you so much, all of you guys, for our awesome panel of loosely quotation experts. Thank you, our veteran leaders, of sharing your hearts. And I know and I trust that God's going to use this in a powerful way in somebody's life. Even just one thing, one idea, one way that we can press into the Lord and how he's leading us as we transition out of this coronavirus and into the new normal in student ministry. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for watching this. As you sign off, if you're on the webinar on Zoom with us, you're going to get a link at the end of this just with a brief survey. We'd welcome you to fill that out and give us some information. If you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, please drop us a comment about a topic that we might be able to address, that or even somebody that you would be interested for us to reach out to and interview or have a conversation with. Because again, we want to bring things that are of value that will help train and equip you to be effective and make maximum impact for God's kingdom. So on behalf of CE National, the whole crew at Momentum Youth Ministry, and our youth conference, we're excited about that being something you can look forward to as well. So keep checking back to our social media, our website for more details. Thank you so much. Can I just have a volunteer close us in a word of prayer? Angie, would you be willing to do that for us?
Sure. Lord, I thank you so much for how you've been at work in these past few weeks. This has been a challenging and new season of ministry, but God, you have been so faithful. Lord, I pray that you would continue to speak to your leaders, that they would find time with you, that they would seek your face, and that you would give them wisdom and knowledge to lead well. Lord, I pray for our teens that are weathering all of this, the disappointment. They're adapting to all of the changes just like we are. God, I pray that you would speak to them each individually, because I know that your heart is for each of them. God, I pray as we continue through our day and through our week and into this new normal. I hate calling it normal because it doesn't feel normal, but it is. It is a new perspective, a new season that we get to enter into with you. And God, I am so excited to see and experience what you have in store and what you have planned for your people and for your church and for youth ministry in the days to come. God, you are faithful and you are good. You are sovereign over all of this. Lord, we are trusting in you. We are leaning into you. God, open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts to whatever you have in store. Guide us and equip us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. On behalf of our awesome panel, myself, we'll see you next time. Have a good one.